Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to go bold with that money line upset call, but at this point, let's lay up, let's get on the green, let's try to putt for
Do
birdie.
I
We're not
look like
not
Bree?
putting for eagles here.
Buddy? Do I look like I'm in any position to get bold?
The Big Bets on Campus podcast.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the Group of Five Deep Dive. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined as always by Mike Ainello. We're going to walk you through everything that happened in Week 8, or at least noteworthy on the gambling front, and then get right down to business. All of our top plays for Week 9, our best bet, the G5 High Five, and our Moneyline Underdog Parlay. But if you are new to this show, you are about to find out that we like to start with some positivity. We're going to start with our G5 heroes from week number 8, try to get the mojo going in the right direction. Ainello, I know that you're in a bit of a funk, a bit of a cold streak here, so why don't you hit me with some positivity? Who did you highlight as your G5 hero? Maybe use a little of that as a springboard here into our picks.
I feel like you should know who I had to pick, right?
I mean, we'll see. I'm pretty confident this week. We've been catching some heat in the comments that we've just been simpatico a little too often. Too many overlaps with our money line picks, with our G5 heroes. So I think I'm alone in my pick this week.
But you should know who I had to pick because, like you said, I'm down bad. I did get a lot of nice messages saying to keep your head up, which I really do appreciate because, again, it does suck being this bad. You know, I'm just ice. I've never been this bad in college football. I'm ice cold. It sucks. It ruins our weekend every week. I was trying to go pumpkin picking with my son and was just like checking my phone, watching all my
slapping pumpkins out of his hand. Listen, bud, we can't afford it this week.
Sorry, you're dead. You can't get this extra gourd because I'm bleeding over here. But I obviously have to go with our boy Devin Dampier because he kept me from going over again. 2 touchdowns, rushed for 100 yards, rushed for 2 more touchdowns. New Mexico stormed back, scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to win 50-45. I believe I was texting you midway through the third quarter here saying that you were going to have to do the show by yourself because I was going to quit or worse. And thank God you're like, hey, Buffalo, by the way, should have won. So I got screwed on that one. You were like, Buffalo still got a chance. And then New Mexico came stormed back. Thank God was able to at least get one on the board. And hey, maybe sometimes, it's the old Kevin from The Office. It's just nice to win one. That's how I felt. And hopefully that turns my little streak around. But yeah, it sucks. I'm bummed. I'm bummed for everyone who listens. So hopefully things will get better. But yeah, Dampier's my hero because he saved another really, really bad week for your boy.
Hey, I'm going to take this a step further. Let me throw something at you, see your reaction. New Mexico, bowl participant? How do you feel about the Lobos maybe getting to 6 wins?
We may talk about him later, Brace.
All right, we'll get to that in short order. My G5 hero from week 8, Mario Anderson Jr.
Wait, because we've been accused of being too simpatico, I've been writing down 2. He was actually my backup in case you took Dampier. I actually wrote Mario Anderson for my second option.
Super Mario goes for 183 on the ground, 27 through the air on 5 receptions, 4 rushing touchdowns. And you've been doing the show long enough with me. Anytime there's a glow up from the D2 JUCO ranks who makes good at either the G5 or the Power 4 level, I can't get enough of it. A Harlan Hill finalist at the D2 level, which is the D2 Heisman. He went off against North Texas. This was just a phenomenal game. It was one of the games I gave out last week in terms of an over, and it lived up to it. North Texas cannot play defense. They can't tackle anybody. We're going to put a pin in that because I'm going to hit them again this week. But all in all, just a phenomenal performance by Anderson Jr. Also, in these cases, I like to watch like the post-game press conference, see what that has to say. This guy has the locked-in mentality of someone who wants to make a 53-man roster in the NFL because all he wanted to talk about afterwards, he gave all his kudos to his teammates, his offensive line. He said all the right things, but it was a shout-out to his pass blocking. That's somebody who wants to get paid to be an NFL running back. Apparently, he's been excellent in pass pro this year, and he takes pride in it. So I just got to tip my hat to him. He has like that grinder mentality. It makes sense going from D2 to South Carolina to Memphis, being the star in this offense. This is all building up now for Memphis. They're basically on cruise control until the Thanksgiving night game against Tulane, which is probably going to be the game of the year in the AAC, unless the service academies have anything to say about it. What did you think about Anderson Jr. and the Memphis offense finally putting it together for 4 quarters?
Yeah, like I said, I had him as my second choice. I think, and we're guilty of it as anybody. Our job is to talk about the Group of 5. I feel like Memphis is really flying under the radar, which is shocking for the preseason American favorite. I believe they had were they second on the odds board for the playoff behind Liberty, or was it Boise? Either way, they were definitely,
they were right there in that top three
yeah.
mix, somewhere behind Liberty. Yeah,
And rightfully so. Army and Navy, I feel like, are stealing all the headlines, but Memphis is 6-1. They beat Florida State. You mentioned the Tulane game. The winner of that game is going to be in the conference title game, likely against one of the service academies, and has Memphis has every bit of chance to go to the playoff as any team we've ever talked about. I think they're like third or fourth on the odds boards behind Boise and UNLV, and one of them's going to get eliminated likely this week. So, yeah, Memphis is flying under the radar, and I feel like it's time they finally had the offense click, and if they can keep that going, we're going to start talking about them a lot more.
We are going to touch on that Navy Notre Dame game in East Rutherford. So mentioning the service academies, I also want to give love to Army. I know that they're a team that we've been banging the drum for, but Bryson Daly, I just had an article in the New York Post. He's now 80-1 to win the Heisman Trophy. And I think it's worth a flyer because when it comes to winning the Heisman, I think it's a little bit like trying to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. It's not just, did you make a good movie? It's publicity, it's momentum, it's the exact timing of when you put your product out there. The same thing for any Heisman campaign. In a regular year, if he was up against Jaden Daniels in LSU from last season, it would already be locked up. There'd be no reason. You're just lighting your money on fire, taking some of these long shots. But he has 26 total touchdowns in 7 games. And I know that his schedule is a little funky because they play the Army-Navy game after the AAC title game, which will be after the Heisman votes are cast. But if he's north of 40 touchdowns, including the AAC title game, in a dream scenario where they go undefeated, they beat Notre Dame, they punch a ticket to the college football playoff, I think the hype train is going to flip into overdrive. The media, I think, will eat this story up if he gets the upset of Notre Dame. At that point, it'll be too late to get a great number like this. So I'm just putting it out there. I threw a little couch change on it. It's interesting to have a player outside of the front runners. And I will say this as well. Genty, we know how much we love him, but Cam Ward is right there. Cam Ward hasn't played a ranked team this year, and you will not be playing a ranked team in the regular season. So for all the usual heat that an Army and AAC team and G5 team's usually getting, at least Army's going to play a ranked team.
And here's the thing about Cam Ward too, especially, is if Miami loses a game, it's going to be because Cam Ward threw 3 picks. If they lose one game, they're going to lose, and he's going to take himself out of the race. And they vote after the conference title games, right?
Correct. I mean, well, technically they're supposed to wait. Some of them vote, a couple days early, but generally it's in that conference championship week up until I think
I think Clemson wins that. So Clemson's going to win that, and if he struggles, which I kind of expect him to, and he's so turnover prone, if they lose a game, he's probably going to look really, really bad. So yeah, I totally agree. Hunter has already missed time, and who knows how healthy he'll continue to be down the stretch. And I think Gendy's got to break the record. It's going to be awesome that there's a good chance we have two G5 guys in New York, which would be very, very cool. So I like it, especially at that number.
All right, we're going to hop into our best bets here in week 9. I'll get it started this week. Tulane at North Texas. The number is at 66.5. That's not enough points. Over. North Texas totals against FBS teams this year, 6-0, pushing past the closing total, the closing number, by 17 points per game. This is the over team in America, and it makes sense because they're top 6 in points per game and yards per game, bottom 10 in points per game allowed and yards allowed. That's a dream scenario for a team just to slam the over blindly every single week. This is my favorite half team in the country, if we're being honest, because they could beat anybody with their offense and they could lose to anybody with their defense. What's interesting is they protect their quarterback exceptionally well and never get to the opposing passer. That's another element of this half team where it's like Chandler Morris in previous seasons had issues with injuries, staying on the field for a full year. They're protecting him so well, and they cannot get any pass rush whatsoever. Final stat in terms of them being a half team, they've created a silly 25 plays of 30 yards or more in 7 games. They've also given up 19 of those to their opponents. Tempo-wise, they snap it every 21.9 seconds. That's the 5th quickest tempo in America. But let's turn to Tulane for a second because I saw, some heat that they've taken in their performance against Rice, what's going on with the offense. Tulane isn't a half team. They've just exploded, offensively against lousy defenses and either struggled a little bit with their P4 opponents or kept things a little bit more conservatively. But when you look at them against lousy defenses, which I can't bang this drum hard enough, That is North Texas. 45 against South Florida, 71 against UAB. Thanks, Trent. 52 against Southeast Louisiana. They even put up 41 against the Louisiana team that is going to be in the race for the Sun Belt title. So the key here is quality quarterback play out of Mensa. He's got 2 games with 325 yards or more through the air and multiple touchdowns. His issue very clearly is pressure. When they protect him, this offensive ceiling is nearly limitless. In the 4 games where he faced less than 7 pressures, the offense averaged 52 points per game. In the other 3 games, he faced double that, 14 pressures or more, and the scoring dipped all the way down to 23 points. That's why I circled the issues for North Texas getting to the passer. They're 132nd per PFF in pass rush. This is why this total is way too low. We're going to go over 66.5. We're going to play this all the way up to 70. I think this is going to steam up by the time you're listening. It's probably going to be in the 68-point range. Keep going over all the way to 70. 10 touchdowns, I think, is just about the right number here. So I'm certainly going to go over with it sitting in the mid-60s. What are your thoughts on the green wave and the mean green?
Yeah, I like it. I think, player props are kind of weird sometimes with G5 games. A lot of them just aren't listed. If they're listed for this game, go ahead and hammer Mekhi Hughes is over because he should run against this defense all day. I kind of mentioned it with the game last week with Memphis. I know when I had North Texas, was it -6.5 against FAU? We were getting tweets all game being like, who the hell is this Cam Fancher? All of a sudden he's slinging the ball around. Well, guess what? Last week against UTSA, 96 yards passing. So look what he did against this defense. By the way, UTSA, not very good at all. And Fancher immediately back into a pumpkin. So if he can make Cam Fancher look good, this defense can make Fancher look good. This defense stinks. For my best bet, Calabrese, there's an old saying, I believe. I could be butchering this, but dance with the one who brought you, right? Is that a phrase?
Correct.
New Mexico +7 against Colorado State. Dampier and the Lobos came through for me last week. I'm backing them here again, catching 7 against Colorado State. Dampier now has 9 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, averaging 250 yards through the air, 70 per game on the ground. New Mexico's offense is up to 30th in the country in success rate on offense. They're 19th in rushing success rate. 3 good running backs to at least 35 yards per game, led by Eli Sanders. The Lobos have now put up 50 burgers in 3 straight games. This offense is absolutely humming. They're averaging 7 yards per play in conference play. They move the ball well. They're explosive. They pick up big plays. Their one big issue has been turnovers. Well, luckily for them, Colorado State has forced just 9 turnovers in 7 games. They rank 102nd in the country in turnover margin. That's not their MO. They're not this UNLV risk it for your biscuit kind of team. They're also 89th in the country in success rate on defense. So I really like the matchup for New Mexico's offense against Colorado State defense. The Rams are terrible against the pass, so I expect Dampier to have a little bit of a bump, a little bit more success through the air than usual. And obviously, I trust this Lobos run game against anybody. Now, you look at Colorado State. They're kind of a strange team because you think of them as a pass-first team. They have been running the ball much, much better down the stretch recently, but their passing attack took a major hit with Torrey Horton's season-ending injury. He's their best player. He's their whole team. So I'll give them credit. They've been running the ball a lot better. They've kind of been able to transition what their offense is. So the Rams should be able to score here on the ground, but we saw last week, nearly every week, with Dampier under center, this team is never going to be out of it. So I think 7 is just too many points between these two teams. Our Action Network power ratings have them ranked 1 spot apart, and they make the Rams a 0.5 point favorite. So give me New Mexico catching 7 here.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to go bold with that money line upset call, but at this point, let's lay up, let's get on the green, let's try to putt for birdie.
Buddy, do I look like I'm in any position to get bold?
All right, now it is time off of the best bets segment to go to our G5 High Five, 5 picks put together in a round robin parlay. Pick out the ones that you like the best. This is our second cut of picks. We've had our moments over the years. We've run the table here. I believe at one point this season we went 4-0-1 in a segment. Let's get back in those winning ways. And I'm going to go back all the way into August when Liberty was this team that we assumed was going to either be an undefeated team out of the G5 ranks or maybe one loss. They certainly would have one of the best offenses. It's just not materialized. They've been kind of sleepwalking through this season. They had the hurricane cancellation against App State that gave them an extra bye week. They had that sleepy game against FIU where they were lucky to get out of it in overtime. But I'm going to go through a few things in their opponent here because they're laying 24 on the road against Kennesaw. Kennesaw is not ready for the bigs yet. Let's just call it like I see it. They're dead last in offense. They're dead last in passing offense as well per PFF. 133rd in rushing offense. So across the board, they cannot move the football. They can't consistently put drives together. Forget about quality drives. They're in the bottom 10 there as well. SP plus. I am getting obsessed with this idea of like, how bad are these Kent States and Kennesaws? They have them 207th across all of college football. That's 10 spots behind D2 Virginia Union. So when you look at their offense, they're clearly going to be playing from behind against the Flames in this one. They don't have an offense that has a setting for play from behind. It's just not there. File footage not found. Bryson Davis has more interceptions than passes of 20 yards or more in his last 3 games. Woof. Now, Liberty coming off that escape against FIU. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's not act like this offense is completely broken for Liberty. They ran for 281 yards and 4 scores in that game. So why was it so close? I think would naturally be the pushback. Well, they fumble at the goal line. Cooley does. They lose it. And they settled for a short field goal inside of the 10 as well. FIU also fumbled into the end zone, but recovered it for a touchdown. So there's a bit of variance luck there. Yes, FIU, played better than expected in that game, but I think a lot of people are focusing in on how far Liberty has fallen below expectations, and they point out that game against FIU and go into OT as like this team is closer to an 8-4 Conference USA team than a title, a runaway title favorite. I disagree a little bit. I think things are starting to trend in the right direction. One other situational element that I think is suppressing this number, this is a really weird one because when I looked into it, I assumed that Jamie Chadwell, being an excellent coach, being a great game planner, really can elevate his offensive weapons, get people into space. With a rest advantage in the past 4 seasons, he is 4-11 against the spread. So I think that's a reason why we're seeing it kind of in between 3 touchdowns and 4 touchdowns and not a whole lot of movement as of yet. But as I mentioned, I still think the Liberty offense is headed in the right direction. I expect Dante Lee back at wide receiver in this game. You're going to want to check to see if Reese Smith appears as well. He's a game time decision, but he should play. Kaiden Salter hasn't been special, but he also hasn't kneecapped their offense, I should say. He's only thrown 1 interception the entire year. And we've seen this from Chadwell before. As the G5 guys here at Action, we focused in on the Grayson McCall experience for years under Chadwell. He likes to use his quarterbacks more in the running game as they get deeper into the season and they get more meaningful opportunities against conference opponents. You saw that with Salter against FIU. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in the red zone, using him in the option game, using him in the RPO game. And I think they've just taken the governor off of him to be able to put his head down and not necessarily play it safe at this point in the season. Final thing, Kennesaw, let's look for a comp. They played against a mobile quarterback in Jacksonville State's Tyler Huff. He destroyed him. 176 on the ground, 3 touchdowns. 24 is not enough points. I think if you asked me in August, this number would have been closer to 38. I don't think that there's that much of a difference in the Liberty offense as we're making that to be. And Kennesaw is even worse than I thought they were going to be. I had some optimism in the preseason show. They're not ready yet. They probably need a whole new offensive makeover or go back to a pure option because it is not working at this level of football. I know Conference USA is one that we've disagreed on at times, and Liberty's certainly not a fan favorite of yours, but just between the white lines, what do you think about the Liberty offense just absolutely dropping a 50 burger on the Owls here?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you couldn't pay me to bet Kennesaw against anybody. They're hot garbage. I think everything you're saying logically makes total sense. I think Liberty should win. I think Liberty should cover this number. I'm in a kind of I want to see it to believe it first because they have not played to show.
Yeah, they have not. I think that's clearly why we're getting this, at least in my estimation in power rankings, a significant discount because they've not proven. They're the opposite of Signetti, James Madison, Indiana Signetti, where you're just going for throats, trying to make all the alumni happy by covering every number. That has not been Liberty at all this season. So
yeah, so I would want to see it first personally, but I don't disagree at all with your logic with the number being where it is. I think the interesting thing about Liberty, I also think Liberty at some point needs to cover this game. because they're at the point now where they could go undefeated and they're not going to make the playoff.
Yeah, people have forgotten about them. They need a nice, if they could score 70, this would be a good time to do it.
We do on the YouTube channel, the BBOC YouTube channel, we do our little G5 playoff show every week. I've been tracking the numbers over the last 4 weeks, despite a canceled game, a bye, and 2 wins. Liberty's odds to make the playoffs over the last 4 weeks have gone from plus 400 to plus 550. And then after 2 wins, they've gone to plus 650, and now they're currently at plus 750. So they have gotten worse every week despite not losing. They're 4th on the odds boards to make the playoffs. We mentioned Boise, UNLV are both ahead of them. Tulane, Memphis is tied with them. The winner of that game is going to jump them. Army is right behind them. So the odds boards, if you look at the AP ranking, are telling you Liberty at undefeated is not a playoff team. So they need to start crushing teams, because they also, I think, I know we disagreed preseason, and I agree with you. I think you're probably coming along to my side that Western Kentucky number is going to be a lot shorter than it would have been in August, because Western Kentucky is killing teams. Their playoff number is getting shorter every week. So that's going to be an interesting one here. So I agree with you in the sense that the number should be bigger, but I also think Liberty has to cover this spread. So I hope you win. I'm not playing it because I want to see it first, but I don't disagree with your logic. All right, for my pick, let's have some fun here. Give me Washington State minus 14.
There we go. Any port in a storm, come on into G5 land, Wazoo.
Because here's the thing. Losing sucks. Losing your bets sucks. Losing your bets on Tulsa just sucks even more. So let's go with a fun one. And I know Washington State's floating in no man's land, so nobody cares about them. I think Washington State's really good. I mean, they crushed Texas Tech. They beat Washington. They beat San Jose State. They beat Fresno State. They just kicked the shit out of Hawaii last week. Their only loss was to Boise State, who's a playoff team. So, and John Mateer is awesome. He is a terrific dual threat quarterback. He is a ton of fun to watch. He's a ton of fun to bet on. 16 passing touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns on the year. He's averaging 270 through the air, 75 on the ground. The Cougars are 40th in offensive success rate. They're averaging 6.6 yards per play, which is 24th in the country. This offense is very good. It's very fun. They should light up the San Diego State defense. And who's the best offense the Aztecs have faced this year? They've played Oregon State, Cal, Central Michigan, Hawaii, and Wyoming. So it's probably Cal. And I don't think Jay Knott played in that game. So, their defensive metrics aren't terrible, but, they've played no offense that can move the ball. And the Washington State defense isn't, anything to write home about. But San Diego State ranks 128th in defensive success rate. They're terrible on defense, or on offense, 128th in offensive success rate. They have not scored more than 27 points all season against an FBS school. They're just completely one-dimensional. Marquez Cooper is their only offense, and Washington State has been much, much better against the run than against the pass. They have looked really good on defense over the last 2 games. It seems like they're starting to improve ever since, that Boise game. And, I know it's a little dangerous in college football to do the whole transitive property game, but I do think it can help a little bit to just kind of understand power ratings and how the market views teams and, how they should be viewed. San Diego State was a 1.5 point favorite at home over Hawaii. So the market power rates Hawaii and San Diego State about the same, right? Well, Washington State was an 18.5 point favorite against Hawaii last week and won by 32. Now they're only a 14 point favorite against a San Diego State team that the market already told us is equal to Hawaii. I don't get it. I think that's too short at 2 touchdowns. I think this should be closer to 20. So I'm taking that 14. I would play this up to probably 17, 18. So give me Washington State minus 14, our little adopted brother. I'm riding with the Cougs.
We're just giving points away left and right. I think it's time for me to take an underdog here just to balance out the G5 high five just a touch. I mentioned it. Navy playing Notre Dame and East Rutherford at MetLife. Give me the 12 points. With the exception of COVID, these 2 teams have played every year since. We're going to do a little trivia here. Since when, INLO? When did they start this series? And they've played every single year with the exception of 2020.
Just given the team, I'm going to guess World War II, since the end of World War II.
1927. So these teams certainly have familiarity. The programs What's also interesting to me when I look through it, in the last 25 years, Navy has been within this number 11 times against Notre Dame. Some of those Navy teams were good. Some of them were just like, hey, we're going to use the triple. We're going to shrink this game down. We're going to give maximum effort. We're on national TV. They usually played at some kind of neutral site. They played in, Baltimore. They played all over the country. So this is a game that obviously the middies get up for. Well, this year they got more than just let's play real hard and let's, hope that Notre Dame, stubs their toe offensively. They got the wing T hybrid. They got Drew Chronic. Give me all the Chronic sound drops because this guy has breathed life into this offense in a way that would make Roger Staubach smile. Fourth in the country in points per game. I don't care who they played. I understand that this schedule has not been very impressive, but they did it against Memphis. They dropped 56 points against Memphis. They got a steady quarterback in Blake Horvath, who's been in the top 5 of QBR the entire season. A defense that is sound, especially against the run. And let's just talk about Notre Dame. I understand that they've been playing better as of late, but what have they really done to buy back our faith completely since that implosion against Northern Illinois? They crushed Purdue, who's absolutely dreadful. They beat Miami of Ohio, but they only scored 28 points in that game. They get outgained by Louisville by 115 yards, and they win in a one-possession game at home. They whooped Stanford, who's 1-5 against FBS opponents, and they needed a late pick 6 to cover against Georgia Tech, who was forced to turn to a backup quarterback in his first start in 2 years. So I'm going to pump the brakes on Notre Dame as a playoff lock now. They got it all headed in the right direction. That A&M win keeps looking better and better as the season goes on. I get all of the hype. But Notre Dame, additionally, coming into this game, they got some issues in terms of how fresh they are. They haven't had a bye yet. No extra time to squeeze in some prep for this unique offense. And Northern Illinois was able to shrink the game down. They ran for 190 yards. So in terms of their athletes just being so superior to Navy that they're going to win the trenches, they're going to blow up this team, they're going to create negative plays for the first time for this entire season that Navy's going to have to deal with. Show it to me. I'm not quite certain that they're going to do that. And then there's multiple run types that when you get into the real nitty gritty of this handicap that Navy excels at, that Notre Dame struggles to defend. The power, the counters, and when you don't load the box, trick plays, I think, are something that Notre Dame has had issues with a little bit. We're talking about reverses, halfback passes, unbalanced lines. Navy's going to pull out everything that they have, and they've been really sharp in this regard this season. So when you look at some of their bread and butter stuff and their willingness to go outside of the conventional, I think all of that starts pushing in the direction of the underdog here, especially catching 12 points. But, to hang around for 4 quarters, you got to do something through the air. It's not just the run game. Navy continues to scheme people wide open. Horvath, 12.3 yards per attempt. If he had enough pass attempts, that would be the highest number in the entire country. So it's pretty clear when he goes to the air, big things happen. And at least for our audience who, may not have watched all that much Navy football this year, I want to try to draw an analogy, and I apologize for having to pull back over 15 years for this. But do you remember that Georgia Tech team with Demarius Thomas out wide? If you remember that squad, they made it all the way to the Orange Bowl. They won 10 games with Paul Johnson. But every single time that Josh Nesbitt pulled it on a play action and went deep, Demarius Thomas had just a huge play. 46 catches, over 1,100 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, 25 yards per reception. That's kind of what's happening with this Navy offense. When they go to the air, amazing things are happening, game-breaking plays. Eli Heidenreich is that guy for them. Before last week, he had a gain of at least 39 yards in every game, whether it was a rush or a reception. So I think this is going to be a 4-quarter battle. I think Navy's going to have a puncher's chance in the 4th quarter, and Notre Dame's going to have a little PTSD. If they find themselves down or tied late against a G5 team, where's all that pressure going? Navy's already exceeded their win total for the season, their expectations for the season. Everything's great. Notre Dame is in this spot where if Marcus Freeman loses to another G5 team, is he the right coach? So would we fire him? That's the razor's edge that they are on as a program right now. So I'll go ahead and take the 12 points. I feel a little bit cowardice for not going with the outright money line upset, but just trying to get some winners here on the board. So what do you think?
Yep, it was on my cutting room floor as well. I think it opened at 13.5, and I was hoping we'd hit that 14 and went the other way. I was kind of pissed about that. Here's the best part about this game is either Navy covers and we all win money, or Notre Dame blows them out and we get a much better number on Army in a month. Because if Notre Dame wins by 20, maybe Army probably opens up north of 14, and then it's hammer time. So yeah, this is gonna be a fun game. This will be a very interesting one to watch, especially again, we're gonna kind of see the Army game in a month. So I'm very interested to see how Notre Dame handles it. This game's probably an advantage for that game, but like I said, either way, we'll probably take the Army in a month. So you can go ahead and pencil that one in already. I'm going to the MAC for my next one. MAC's been a scary place to live this year.
Yeah, Mac is just, it's Mac and its ever-living Macking brains out this year because everyone is like 2-1. Everybody has a chance to win the conference.
That might be my best bet of the year. It was about a month ago when I said, Breeze, I just have a gut feeling the MAC's going to be Macky this year, and it has been Macky. And a big player in that Mackiness has been Northern Illinois. And I'm going to lay the 11.5 here against Ball State, because this is kind of what the Huskies have just played up and down all season. They upset Notre Dame, lose to Buffalo, get a big win against Bowling Green, then lose to Toledo. But even if you look at that Toledo game, first of all, it's a very weird game. They lose by 7. Both teams started backup quarterbacks. They outgained the Rockets by over 100 yards. They allowed a 50-yard touchdown pass and 2 field goals. So NIU missed a field goal. They turned it over on downs 6 times. Punt the ball 1 time, please. What are we doing here? You have a backup quarterback. Stop going for it on 4th down. So now it sounded like they were hopeful to get Ethan Hampton back in that game. It wasn't one of these out for weeks. Who knows if you can trust any coach these days, but they did seem like they thought he'd be back. Wasn't able to go. So I'm hoping he'll be good this week. He's on the depth chart. It's listed as an or, but I'm hoping we'll get Hampton back. But even if he's not back, the Huskies did get leading receiver Trayvon Rudolph back in that game. They got starting running back Ontario Hampton back last week. So now both of them played. Both of them are now another week healthier. Brown he went, but he didn't start. Another week, you got both Brown and Rudolph now back. And this NIU defense has just been terrific. They rank 3rd in the country in defensive success rate. They're top 10 against both the run and the pass. They're allowing just 4.5 yards per play. They've allowed over 300 yards total just once all season. And I kind of think Ball State's terrible. Their defense is awful. They can't throw the ball consistently. Their really only weapon is Tanner Koziel, their stud tight end. But what I like is we already saw this Huskies defense hold Bowling Green's Harold Fannin to just 4 catches for 25 yards. Now,
which is Fannin a good 100 yards under his average. He's the best tight end in the country.
He's the 2nd best tight end in the country behind Tyler Warren.
But that guy counts as an all-purpose player. He's playing every position for Penn State.
More versatile than Travis Hunter. Put him in the Heisman conversation. 5 positions is better than 2. Anyway, so they already shut down Fannin. And now, Koziel's very good, but he's not Fannin. And like I said, I just really, really trust this Northern Illinois defense. This offense should be able to score on the Ball State defense. I like this number, even if Hampton doesn't play. But I think it's a smash spot if he does. I'm hoping he does. I'm going to take the 11.5. Or lay the 11.5. It probably goes up towards closer to 13 if Hampton's, officially ruled in. So I'll roll the dice because I'm still fine with it even if he doesn't play, but I'm taking it now at 11.5. Hopefully we'll see Hampton. But again, I'm more trusting this defense.
If the MAC was a little horseshoe of blackjack and the dealer is looking at me and pointing, would I like to go to a seat? That's me moving my money off of the table because I have no idea what is happening in that conference week to week. I hit a couple upsets early in the season, or at least taking dogs, and that was the right move. But I need to focus my attention elsewhere because I just do not have a feel.
If I asked you who's winning the MAC, you can name 8 teams.
Yeah, you legitimately could just name everybody.
Not Penn State. That's anybody.
Yeah, and also pepper in all of the blown leads in Central Michigan.
Isn't Ohio in first place? They had 1 returning starter on their entire team. It was their center.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, we're going to finish out the G5 High Five here, starting with a shout out to Brett McMurphy for breaking the news that Goose Crowder is done for the year. And that means the Troy offense is cooked. No Goose, they're cooked. He was awesome in their best offensive performance of the year. Now, granted, it was against the FAMU Fighting Rattlers, but he was pretty good in the Nevada game as well in a close loss. Without him, this offense is just dreadful. The Trojans, probably the biggest differential from what they put on film last year with Vidal as their offensive engine and everything they had on defense to what they are this year. They're just a husk of their former self. Matthew Caldwell is taking sacks left and right. He's turned the ball over. Kilcrease took far too many sacks. He ends up getting pulled. Neither move the needle for me from a quarterback perspective. Whereas the Arkansas State offense, it is just that chart going up, 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 up. They're laying 7.5 here. Not enough points. I think it should be 10 in this spot. So I'm going to go, to grab them before it gets to a key number like that. I called it last year with San Jose State. They started 1-5. They finished 7-5 in the regular season. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is here again. Arkansas State started 3-3. They get a win last week. They're up to 4-3. They're winning out. Includes an upset in 2 weeks against Louisiana on the road. They're coming off a bye, but one thing at a time. Let's talk about this game against Troy. I believe in this offense. Jalen Rayner looked like himself really for the first time the entire season in terms of being able to do it with his legs, being really accurate, making all the right decisions with the football. He carved up Southern Miss. Jaquez Cross was an all-purpose monster in that game, multiple touchdowns. Courtney Jackson and Corey Rucker are arguably the best receiving tandem in the Sun Belt. And remember how well Rayner played as the season progressed in conference play last year. He really got it going down the stretch. I think we're seeing something similar here. He's turning back into that stud we all hoped that he would be in the offseason. That's why you and Stuck were kind of, taking turns, patting them on the back, potentially, naming them the dark horse darling of the Sun Belt, at least in August. Now, this defense is starting to create negative plays. Now, granted, it was against Southern Miss, but finally they created any havoc whatsoever. It was enough for them to move into the top 100 in Colin Wilson's havoc rankings. 11 tackles for loss against the Golden Eagles, 3 takeaways. Troy's lost on offense. I can't make it any clearer than that. They're 120th per PFF, but they're much worse without Crowder. I think this is a bottom 5 potential offense in the entire country without Crowder. Their lackluster havoc numbers are on the rise as well. When you look at what they were able to do last year, they constantly were putting teams on edge, outside of their comfort zone, making them, have to beat them in ways that they weren't comfortable with. Particularly this Arkansas State team. They beat the absolute brakes off them. 37-3. This is a revenge game. The Arkansas State kids, even though this is a clear win, they should have it. They need it for bowl eligibility. They're not going to overlook this. I guarantee Butch Jones is playing some highlights from last year's game. This is the get right spot for Arkansas State to feel good about themselves, to feel like they are in control of their own destiny. I'll lay the 7.5. Like I said, I'd lay it up to 10.
So you're telling me my Arkansas State plus 600 to make the Sun Belt title game is fully alive and well?
It's not dead yet. Let me tell you, man. Me and probably 12 of my friends on ESPN Plus were watching that whole game against Southern Miss. They looked pretty damn good on offense, and Cross and their backup running back, they just do not go down on first contact. So this offense has stability. I think that number is alive. Dig that out of the trash. Make sure to just smooth out the creases on that ticket because it could be paying off in a couple weeks.
I'll put it in a thick book until December. Yeah, it was just you and Mama Rucker watching on ESPN Plus.
All right, we're going to close things out with the Moneyline Underdog Parlay. I'm going to go quickly here because this is the marquee game, and I also want to give you, Ainello, an opportunity to talk about this G5 Super Bowl. Of course, referring to UNLV hosting Boise State, the Mountain West Conference Game of the Year at Allegiant in Sin City. This one is going to be amazing. It's homecoming for UNLV as well, so I think they're going to get as big of a crowd as they've had in years. Game of the Century vibes in Vegas. All right, let's get into the handicap. I think it's pretty simple. Barry Odom's going to throw everything he has at stopping Genty in this game. But he's got a below-average run defense. They're 74th per PFF. They're 59th in tackling, which is okay. Not against Bo Jackson 2.0. He's still going to go for 200 total yards in this game. He's going to score 3 TDs. It's Jordan rules at this point. Make him earn it, but he's going to get his. They're going to score points. This offense is really good when it flows through Genty. There's just not too much you can do. It's not even a question of hey, let's just load the box up. He's just standing there with his arms at his side, Mike Myers style, just ready to carve you up. So if you put all those people in the box, all he has to do is break one tackle and he's off for a 75-yard touchdown. I think it's just a question of make sure this isn't a 400-yard game and 6 touchdown performance. Just give me a little something. The bar is so low. And the other reason why I have issues here is that they like to use him in the pass game. And the only comp, really, a back that's even in the ballpark with Genty, because I do think he'll be an NFL back, was Allen from Syracuse. He's like a B+, A- college back. He had 71 yards on the ground, but he killed him in the pass game. 9 receptions, 58 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that's why having any game plan centered around the idea of shutting him down is just, laughable. So let's go ahead and put it aside. This is going to be a high-scoring game. He's going to get his. But I'm going to say this right now. in terms of the three reasons why UNLV is going to win this game, and they're going to cover, well, actually, they're the underdog here. I think they're going to win by, let's call it a touchdown. Starts with the offensive line. This is an elite run blocking team. Forget about G5 distinctions or asterisks or anything. This is a top 25 offensive line in terms of the run game in the entire country. They open holes. Boise's run defense, I think it's a little bit softer than their numbers would indicate, because in a lot of cases, teams had to abandon the run because they were playing catch up against the Broncos, particularly in the last month. So, with that on the side, let's also get into this. You have to be clear in terms of your goal against the Boise defense, because if you get behind the sticks and you don't stick to that game plan of running the football, Boise's going to sack you. They're going to get in your face. They're going to bring you down. They lead the entire country in sacks, 4.83 per game, far and away the best sack average in the entire country. And they do it because in third and medium to long, they go cover one and they just come at you. Even if it's just with a standard rush or one added blitzer, they're still saying, like, you got to beat man coverage. You got to do it quickly because we're getting to the quarterback. And I think that's where this game is going to swing, because if they're on schedule ahead of the sticks and Haj and that Rebel run offense and all the RPO, triple option, go-go trickery keeps them from playing the exact kind of football they want on the Boise side, I think that's going to be an issue, because Boise, for all that they've done in their pass rush, they're 117th in third down defense. So when you get to third and manageables, you can convert pretty easily against this team, whether you run or you pass. And this is an attacking, havoc-minded defense. They're 12th nationally in terms of Boise, what they do. But it's all predicated on the sacks and turnovers. So if you turn it in to a game of not making mistakes, you have to trust Haj Malik Williams. I do. I've watched enough of this kid at this point. He is somebody who always makes the right choice in the RPO and option game. He's a good runner. He can pick up first downs. I think he's going to be the difference here. Also, Boise is 95th in deep plays surrendered of 30 yards or more. So when they don't get home, when there's a play extended by a quarterback outside of the pocket, there are going to be some haymakers thrown around in this game. So I just think there's multiple ways for UNLV to win. There's nobody on Boise that can man up Ricky White. And like I said, they want to play cover one. They want to challenge people. Ricky White is somebody who can really hurt you. DeJesus as well. He's somebody who can take a shot in the slot and take it for a long touchdown. If all of this works, at least as I'm envisioning it, we slide the pressure over, and maybe Genty has to, take a breather, or they're down by 14 and all of a sudden they got to put the ball in the air. Maddox Madsen. Can we talk about this guy for a second? Because in their one tight game in the fourth quarter of the whole season, he finished 17 of 40 for 148 yards against Oregon. I don't believe in the kid. I think he is just a substitute teacher that gets on the bus, a chaperone, so that you can go to the aquarium or whatever the hell you got to do. You have to have a quarterback, technically, with Genty. He's just that warm body to be like, all right, let's go. Let's get the offense going. If they put him in a situation where he has to win this game or to come up with some clutch plays, I don't believe he can do it. So I'm going to take the home team, the value at nearly plus 150, the better quarterback, and hope and pray it's not a 400-yard game out of Genty.
Okay, so that was a phenomenal breakdown by you. So I'm not going to add too much. All I'll say is I have gone back and forth on this game all week. When it opened, I'll be honest, I was ready to bet Boise. Decided to wait a little bit, probably just because, I assume there'll be like sportsbook boosts for Friday night games, so I kind of just wanted to wait. I was ready to bet Boise, and then the more I thought about it, the more I started to like UNLV, and then I saw Colin Wilson bet Boise, and I started to dig in more, and I started to like Boise more, and I think I've gone back to UNLV. I think I got to stay there and ride with you. Now, I'll give the Boise argument that makes me a little nervous. Is the two biggest things that kind of stood out to me is you look at Haj Malik Williams and him having such success as a dual threat. As I mentioned above, John Mateer, Boise shut him down with his legs. I think he had like 28 yards on 24 carries or something to that effect.
He did have a long run, but it was a lot of negative sack yardage, which is their calling card. I mean, it's not like that came out of the blue.
Yeah, and Boise, smoked Washington State. And to me, they play very similar to UNLV. So that aspect scares me, is can Haj get going with his legs as well to kind of keep that balance on the passing game. And UNLV has the gambler's mentality. They're elite at forcing turnovers, Jalen Catalon, all those guys. For Madsen, nothing special upside wise. He's done his job of not turning the ball over. I think he only has 2 picks all year. So to your point, I think it's imperative UNLV gets an early lead, or at least, because then once you force him to start throwing, because he hasn't had to, that's part of it. Is he's just a game manager, stand there, turn around, hand the ball off, throw a 3rd and 4 if you have to, don't throw an interception. Now, if they're losing and he has to start slinging it, does that change? That would be my question, because if he protects the football, that's bad, because UNLV has kind of thrived on that aspect for the last 2 years. So those would be my 2 things to Boise. But I think you said at the end there, which is kind of the thing that kept swaying me, is Boise or UNLV has so many ways to beat you. Boise State has one path. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a damn good path. Their path is get a lead and run the best running back in the country down your goddamn throat the entire game. It's a good path. It's going to get them to the playoff. But it's one path. UNLV has a lot of options. They have Hodges' legs. They have their running backs. You mentioned Ricky White. You mentioned, can anyone man him up on the outside? Here's a better question for you. Can anyone block him on a punt? Because
can you imagine the special teams coordinator for Boise this week just sweating bullets in every single meeting? Like, what are we going to do with this guy? Because no one's figured it out.
I mentioned a few weeks ago, I'm like, why doesn't every team just do this? Take your biggest, fastest player, just be like, go block the punt with your long arms.
I like an alternate universe where Frank Beamer listens to our podcast and he's like, he's doing the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the camera. He's like, yes, that's what I did for 25 years in Blacksburg. That's why I'm a legend.
Go to basketball practice and be like, hey, you want to come block punts for me in the fall? Every team should do that. Who's that Cooper Flagg, that dude on Duke? Let him go block a punt. So like I said, this is a tough one for me. You have been the UNLV whisperer all year. I've been undecided on this game. I'm officially going to lock in a bet on the Rebels. For you, out of loyalty to our show, you haven't let me wrong on this team all year, other than saying Sluka was better than Williams. So go ahead, give me the Rebels. I'm with you on this one.
All right, let's close it out. What do you have for your half of the money line underdog parlay?
Hey, you want to get Mackey?
Oh man, I don't. But lay it out here.
We're gonna zip it up, baby. Give me Akron plus 135. Look, Akron has played a brutal schedule. Ohio State, Rutgers, South Carolina, Ohio, Bowling Green, and Western Michigan. That's who they played this year. Eastern Michigan has played a much, much easier slate. And even so, their metrics are pretty similar when you dig into them. Akron ranks 123rd in yards per play this year. Eastern Michigan is 120th. They're not that much better. Akron actually ranks better on defense at 109 compared to EMU's 114. Again, that's a defense that played Ohio State. So you look at the last few games in conference play. The Zips lost by 7 to Bowling Green after the Falcons scored with 2:30 left to play in the game. They lost to Western Michigan last week despite outgaining them by 115 yards. They averaged 7.7 yards per play in that game. Eastern Michigan has been getting incredibly lucky with turnovers. They rank 17th in the country in turnover margin. They've just been pulling games out of their ass. Now, yes, Ben Finley has had turnover issues, which definitely scares the shit out of me. But I just think Akron has been playing much better than their record shows. And we mentioned it. This year has been Mackey, and I feel this in my bones that this just feels ripe for a classic Maction upset where the 1-6 Zips beat the 5-2 Eagles. Give me Akron. Give me Jomo. You can keep the +3. I'll take plus 135.
You got the Jomo bandwagon. You got, come on, hop into the pouch, the kangaroo pouch. Hop away with some money here. I'm going to do it. You backed me with UNLV. Listen, I've been waiting.
Yours is a lot more fun than mine. Yours is a lot more fun than mine.
All right, that's it for us this week. We went a little over the prescribed time that we should be giving you here in G5 land, but we had to. It was the G5 Super Bowl, the Mountain West Conference game of the year, so be sure to check that out. Programming alert, it's late night on Friday night. Don't miss it. Don't wake up on Saturday. I can't wait for that UNLV Boise game. It's at 10:30 Eastern, CBS Sportsnet, so make sure to catch that.
Which by the way means you got nothing else to watch. There's no excuse. There's no other game on. There's no SEC game of the week. It's Friday night in Vegas. All eyes should be on this game, which is exactly what it deserves.
For Mike Ainello, I'm Mike Calabrese. This has been the Group of 5 Deep Dive. Make sure to check out more from the BBOC team. We got Colin and Stuck's full Week 9 card, top to bottom. diving in the trash, making sure that they cover every single marquee game as well. And that builds up into the Saturday live show with Brett McMurphy, Colin Stuck, myself, and Johnny Football. So be sure to check us out there for all the last minute pieces of information to help you build your Saturday card, keep you in the black, keep the momentum going here through football season. And please, I've been noticing more and more reviews. Let me go ahead and actually pull one up now. We really appreciate it. This one from Logan12348. A shout out to the G5 guys. Always into listening to Mike and Mike talk G5 football. Very entertaining and informative, even though I have to listen to Penn State nonsense. Keep up the good work. Well, I got good news for you, Logan. Hit me up over at Twitter at East Breeze. That's EASTBREESE. I'm throwing you a free $10 parlay on whatever you want in the world of college football.
Hey, let the parlay could be a little Akron Old Dominion Marshall parlay.
Yeah, just all former Penn State assistants. That's the only caveat. I would never do that to you, Logan. Please hit me up, slide into my DMs, and happy to give out parlays and free swag from our producer, Matt Mitchell, to anybody who gives out 5-star reviews. As I said, we're inching closer to 1,000 reviews on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. Also, like and subscribe over the BBOC YouTube channel as we grow our brand. Thank you so much for listening, being a part of the show. It means the world to us, and hopefully it's going to be a big Saturday for our picks. Thanks again. Have a good one.